Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? I am back from a much needed week-long break in Greece, and more than the actual locational change was needed was I've had 10 days with no social media, and it has been very much needed and very much enjoyed. And I think it's a really difficult energy to be a people pleaser on social media. And I'm trying to work out how I can find the balance between needing social media for my business, but also not wanting it to take over my life and not being too accessible. It's quite hard to use Instagram through your computer. So I'm trying to work out how I can do it, because there were times when, even though I've deleted the apps, I was absentmindedly, not even consciously, scrolling to see what was going on before I realised that the app was missing because I deleted it. And that happened more than once. It's quite scary, really. But while we're talking about social media, I just wanted to give a shout out to, especially I think on YouTube at the moment, I'm getting a lot of interaction and comments about the week ahead readings. I don't know if that's because they come out on a Sunday on YouTube or what it is, but I'm loving it. I'm loving this interaction. So shout out to Bridget Cox, who's been talking she's been commenting on loads of my videos and I love them. Thank you, Bridget. On the week ahead reading, you put, "This could not be more indicative of my life right now. I've been seriously questioning if I'm even in the right field because, oh my God, everything has been rough lately and it feels like everything is against me. So thank you. I needed to hear that I'm not alone." And thank you for commenting, Bridget, because I feel like I'm on my own. I think on social media particularly, there's that tendency to share the good bits. We understand that's how that works. No one's posting pictures. You know, like when you turn your phone on and you're looking down and you catch a sight of yourself and the camera's on facing you and you suddenly realise that you look like a thumb and it's devastating, and then your phone opens and you think, how can you facially recognise that? That's not what I look like, surely. We know we're not putting those pictures out on social media, so we're aware on some level that it isn't what it seems. But equally, when it applies to our businesses and our livelihoods, I think we think everybody else has got it in the bag. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I also wanted to acknowledge there's a few people that have messaged me. They've privately messaged me on Instagram, so I'm not going to share your stuff, but other people in spiritual businesses who are struggling, who are finding it really, really challenging at the moment. And there's so many opinions about why this could be. Is it market saturation? Is it a change in spending habits? Is it a change in energy? We don't know. But there's definitely something going on. Again, I'm really seeing a lot of the success stories that are being shared on Instagram. Instagram particularly, maybe also Facebook, are the sort of pyramid schemes of them, which is the kind of, I'll teach you how somebody online went from 0 to 6 figures in only 3 months with no budget. And I haven't reached that yet, but I'll tell you the secrets and the tricks of the trades. And then if you all pay me enough to teach you that, then I might reach the 6 figures that the person who taught me has reached. That is a pyramid scheme. So it's really hard, I think, when you're hit with this influx all the time of what looks like success and you are struggling and you feel like, what am I doing here? What am I doing? So I wanted to acknowledge that. I'm just writing a note to myself about something I need to say to you in a minute before I forget. Now, also, I thought it was really interesting that a channel for spirit commented on my YouTube to say at the beginning they didn't feel like the reading resonated with them. And I love that too. Like, own it. Be honest. Tell me what you think. But spirit encouraged me to listen until the end, and then it started making more sense. I can see where this applies for certain parts of me and will certainly take that advice on board. The surrendering is a hard thing to do. In other areas of my life, though, there has been positive transformation this week, so it's giving me hope. I can't see the finished jigsaw yet, but do we ever get to see that? I don't know. And I love that. I'm so glad to hear that somebody feels like they are moving a little bit, even a little bit. I feel like I'm a statue encased in marble. I'm a bit like one of those Victoriana dolls that are apparently filled with demonic energy, where I'm just stuck and staring and feeling really freaking fed up. So good. I want to hear your stories. I want to know that there is movement and there is things happening. It's a difficult time to be a human, certainly. Okay. I also got an email message from Kim Alexis, who was on this podcast. And I just wanted to share what she had to say because I loved it. Hi, Hannah. I hope this finds you recovered. I had to write after listening to your podcast, read the Alexandra Palace Mind, Body, Soul Catastrophe. There's so much I laughed at, and I know I shouldn't have, and so much I really felt sad for what you went through. I just want to say, Kim, you were supposed to laugh. Like, I didn't share it just as a bleat. I want you guys to laugh. I'm laughing about it. I saw my mum earlier and she said, "What's that scar on your chest?" And I went, "Oh, that's where a roller banner trapped my flesh in it as I was starting the Mind, Body, Spirit Fair." And she went, "Oh my God." I'm at the moment permanently marked. I'm hoping it's going to heal off. Send me Reiki. But yeah, so you've got to laugh about it because otherwise you'd just give in, wouldn't you? I stopped doing big events years ago. They're not worth it, as you duly found out. Smaller local events are better and much cheaper. Friday is always slow as people are at work. Saturday a bit better, and Sunday is always the busiest. I was at Sally Morgan's event on Sunday and the very large room was full. Sorry to rub it in. However, it was falsely advertised in my opinion, as it was listed as a workshop, but was just there, her giving messages to the audience. I booked in as I thought I would see her teaching psychic development in the workshop. I booked it because the venue is only 20 minutes from where I live. You mentioned their advertising. I was receiving their advertising promotions to my inbox in the run-up. I also wish to tell you that 23 years as a psychic, spiritual medium, crystal healer, hypnotherapist, author, things have definitely changed since COVID. I was teaching my weekly in-person psychic development class for 7 years, and now it's like trying to pull teeth to get students. I have also had to cancel my annual Sardinia retreat since COVID. I can't get enough clients to pay for it to make it worthwhile. So yes, it's got tough, and I feel for your spiritual sister. Bright blessings for the future, Kim. Thank you, Kim. And if you want to look up Kim on Instagram, she is Kim_Alexis_psychic. Yeah, it really is tough. And I'm actually really glad to know that Sunday was more successful. I know that I had reached my limit. I was done. I was baked. But there were a lot of really genuine, really wonderful stallholders there who I would like to have done well. So I'm glad to know that. I will say this, but the Sally Morgan talk I watched was not what it was advertised to be either. So there must have been some breakdown in communication between them and Mind, Body, Spirit. It's Mind, Body, Soul. It's Mind, Body, Soul. I keep calling it Mind, Body, Spirit, and the Mind, Body, Spirit Fair people are going to come after me. Mind, Body, Soul Fair, which is different to the Mind, Body, Spirit Fair. Mind, Body, Spirit is at Olympia. Mind, Body, Soul is at Alexandra Palace. Just want to make that really clear. So I'm glad that it was really, really full. I really am. When I saw Sally talking, it wasn't what it said it was going to be. However, I thought she was an excellent presenter. Really, really engaging, really confident, great energy, great to watch. I didn't get to see her do any mediumship, so I can't comment on that. But her presentation for her talk was fabbo. Now, Kim, this is kind of my point here, in that I was getting the Mind, Body, Soul emails into my inbox, but that is just advertising to your existing client base. When I look on their social media, which is their opportunity to have reached a wider audience, to have reached new people, there was no activity happening on there. There were no posts, which means that there were no ads run, which means that there were no new eyes. And so, yes, I agree that part of your work, if you're putting on a fair, is communicating to your existing client base. I will say that all of the emails I received, well, 90% of them were all about Sally Morgan. I get that she's a big name, but also if she's not your cup of tea, it would have been lovely for other things at the event to have been advertised. They had a plethora of speakers, of stalls, of activities that I really think deserved a shout out. So that I will say that, but I also think they need to be trying to attract new people. One of the things that one of the store holders, the one that I said came over and spoke to us, said was they could really see that over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a downturn of the regulars, of the regular store holders. And I think that is to do with them not reaching a wider audience. And part of that is advertising with a little bit of savviness. If you've got a spiritual business, you do want to reach your existing audience, but you also want to expand it. And that is expensive. But then if you're paying $4,000 for a tiny little space, plus I paid to be in their magazine, they've got enough in the budget to do that, surely. But I do really appreciate you sharing that with us. And this is the thing, I think. If nobody is talking about their failings, then nobody talks about the failings. I've now had all of these wonderful people. I've had Bridget on YouTube saying, I needed to know I'm not on my own. I've had you, Kim, going, I've got this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. I've got someone wonderful who I won't name, but just in case, who's messaged me on Instagram saying, I've been running a shop. It's gone from being really profitable to being really difficult. And just like you said, I'm going into pubs and restaurants. There's loads of people in there. So people are spending, but they're not spending it with me. So there is definitely something happening. I don't know what the answer is, but there's something happening. And I'm glad that we can all talk about that and share that and communicate that with each other, because we need to be leaning on each other in these times and sharing the truth so we can work through it. Next up, I wanted to share a little message I got on Instagram, which I should have been better prepared for. Please hold. Here we go. From Kelly Louise. And she said, loved the episode about creating an altar. It was so fun and inspiring. Our altar is a whole family affair. We all put little bits on there that meant something to us or that we just like looking at as we walk past. We are always adding things from walks or trips to the beach like feathers, sea glass and pebbles, or we add things from holidays like crystals or little figures. It gets changed around frequently depending on what crystals I want to work with to bring different vibes to the whole family, or I might put a spell jar on there if I'm trying to manifest something. And I just love that, Kelly. I wish that my children could bear to be in my company. Yeah, they suffered a roast dinner with me on Sunday. I think if I asked them to make an altar with me, they would just fall apart. But if you've got children that are young enough, what a lovely and amazing and fun, magical thing to do together. I'm quite envious. How wonderful. I've also got an email from the lovely Kate, and it's a big one, but I'm going to read it to you guys because it's good. Dear Hannah, your podcast, You Can't Always Get What You Want, has given me lots of food for thought. You asked for listener feedback, so here you go. I've worked in publishing for the last 12 years. Over that time, I've been a vendor at no less than 70 conferences like the one you describe. Some of them have been better than others, but I feel your pain. There were several times that I came back to my booth only to discover that all my display books had been stolen. At another conference, the reps from a competitor stole all of my lead sheets while I was in the restroom. One time I came back to my booth from a session presentation to find that someone had posted a sign that said, "Sorry, Kate," poop face, prominently on my display. I've met you, Kate. There's nothing poopy about your face whatsoever. Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. That wasn't even my worst conference experience. After logging around heavy book boxes during 3 back-to-back conferences in 2017, I sneezed and my intestines popped out of my stomach. Yes, I had to cradle my guts in my hand as I drove to the closest emergency room that was 2 hours away. I am completely sympathetic to your conference trauma, but will now stop commiserating and move on to the reason I am writing. I mean, I just want to stop, put a little pause in your email there and just say, if we were top trumps, I think your card of guts in hand completely obliterates my slightly cut by a roller banner and walked around in the rain crying. I think you win. And I know you haven't said it for that, but it just cracks me up. There's me like, this is so bad. And there's you commiserating with me having had those experiences. Yeah, bloody hell. I finished your podcast feeling very sad, but not for the reasons that you might think. You talked about the trials and tribulations of Facebook and social media. While I've never had to use social media for my livelihood, it is the very thing that brought me to you. I was randomly scrolling on Facebook one night and up popped this sassy medium from the UK whose message really hit home. After several months of seeing these funny posts, I told my husband that I liked this lady and she had a podcast. He started listening and said that Hannah was the real deal. Months later, I saw a Facebook pop-up stating that you had some openings for readings. Though I had never booked with a medium before, my husband and I both signed up for separate sessions. We even changed our last names in case you turned out to be dodgy. We were both blown away by the evidence brought through in our sessions, and we loved connecting with those on the other side. Fast forward 5 months to July. My son came home from college in a very, very dark place. Though we had hired counsellors for him and done all that we could, he was not getting better. Now understand that my 20-year-old son has not been on the same woo-woo spiritual journey that my husband and I had. In fact, he thought it was pretty weird. In a last-ditch effort to help him before more drastic measures were taken, I booked him a spiritual direction reading with you. When I told him, he was annoyed with me and sceptical, but he did show up to the meeting. I still do not know all that was said in that 45 minutes, but I can tell you that the session with you completely turned his life around. Now, critical of herself, Hannah will say, well, it was spirit, not me. Yes, it absolutely was spirit, but it was also you. You made him laugh. You brought through the people in spirit he needed to hear from. You gave him the confidence to face his fears. It has now been 3 months. I spoke with him last night and he said, "Mum, this is the happiest I have ever been." I asked him what had changed at all for him and he said, honestly, it was the session with Hannah. That is why I'm writing to you today. And now I will finally get to my point. Listening to your You Can't Always Get What You Want podcast made me sad because I wish you could see what I can see and what many of your listeners can see. With all of its flaws and headaches, it was Facebook that brought me to you. Had it not been for the efforts you made in advertising and funny posts, I would not have found you. And you are changing the world. I know you have worked hard. I know you were frustrated as hell at that conference. But sometimes we cannot see the impact we are having. And if you look back at history, this is the reality that most pioneers and innovators have had. They have pulled all of themselves into something just to be laughed at and disregarded and kicked to the curb. But where would we be without them? Again, critical of herself, Hannah will say, well, I am not those people. Yes, you bloody well are. They did not think they were those people either in the moment, but others around them knew full well. Hannah, I know that you lost money last year and that frickin' sucks, but you also saved my son's life. I am also certain there are thousands that have had a similar story to mine that you will never hear about. Please don't give up. In the coming months, when you get frustrated and find yourself once again scream crying into the abyss, please try to hold this story in your heart. I think Spirit did lead you to the conference. Your instincts were right and you were in alignment. I think things played out as they were supposed to. In my experience, it is only with the passage of time and clarity of hindsight that we realise the outcomes Spirit had planned for us were far greater than we could have envisaged. And if nothing else, maybe it all had to happen just so you could hear me say these words and know what a difference you are making in this broken world. I made myself read that. Do you know, halfway through, I thought, I did my usual, that's very self-indulgent to read this email on your podcast. Blah, blah, blah. My mum and I used to listen to Steve Wright on Radio 2, and we always do impressions of all the people going, love your show, Steve. Steve, love your show. Can you play a song for us? Steve, love your show. You're the best, Steve. And now I've got a podcast and I'm doing that. But what can you do? I'm just going to take a minute. That email is completely transformational for me and very much needed, Kate, so thank you. I'm definitely doing some shadow work at the moment. I'm definitely having to face my imposter syndrome again. I wish I could just slay it like George and the Dragon. I'm so fed up with being in this cycle, but this cycle is the human. So I just want you to know, Kate, that I've printed that email out and it's going to go up on my wall and I'm going to make myself read it every week. And I want to say thank you because you have brought me back to remembering the good stuff with social media. So, yep, I need to have a balance with it. No doubt I need to work on that balance. But it's also motivated me to do more lives. And I think I just got very much turned to the bad stuff, of which there is plenty. And your email helps me remember the good. And it is important. So, and in fact, interestingly, Spirit were getting me to focus on what I like doing, following the feeling of what feels good to me. So some of you may have listened to, I was interviewed for the Champagne Channeling podcast with Jennifer. And she very much talks in that, just naturally, she's in conversation, but she's talking about, and it was a hell yes to me. And I felt that and I knew that I had to. And if it's not a hell yes, I don't want to do it. And even just those little throwaway comments she makes when she's interviewing me about that really got me thinking about what in my existence, what I'm doing because I'm telling myself I should, and what I'm doing because it is a hell yes. And part of what I really like doing and what I've really been missing is lives, is pulling cards and interacting with people and having that fun and having those chats. So I've decided to go back to doing those. So on one hand, I'm moaning about social media. On the second hand, I'm going to be doing more on it again. And then I get your email, which just reminds me why that's a good idea. So thank you. Right, let's do something less emotional. Have we got anything less emotional? Kim. Kim has sent in an email to me and I love it. So right now at this moment of recording this, it's Halloween. It won't be Halloween when you listen, it will be past Halloween. In fact, one of the reasons I had to pause this podcast if you're watching on YouTube is because I had to go take a photo of my daughter and her friend dressed up. My daughter is a demonic turkey for Halloween, I kid you not, before they went out trick-or-treating. Love it. So Kim has said, just a quick one, Hannah. It seems to be a commonly thrown around phrase that the veil is thinner between spirit and the physical world at this time of year. Is this true? Yes and no, Kim, depending on what you believe a veil to be. So when I used to hear this expression growing up, I imagined it like a fog, a mist that separates us from the spirit world. Maybe it's the clouds they sit upon in heaven, who knows? Like a physical thing, because we can only work through those contexts, can't we? As I've developed and I've worked with spirit, I now know that there is no separation. We are in the spirit world. The spirit world is here. We are part of it. We are limited in our experience of it because we are in the physical state, the low vibrational physical state, and spirit are in the energetic state. And there's a crossover between the two, which I'm guessing is the veil. I don't know. We are in the spirit world, and spirit are omnipresent. So your loved ones in spirit can be with everybody who's here in the physical world without needing to choose. They're not with their favourites and away from the other ones. They are with everybody simultaneously. So no, Halloween does not make any difference in the sense that they're always with you. But you knew there was a but coming. If you believe that it will make a difference, then it will. Because the only barrier to anybody being able to communicate with spirit is their belief in their abilities to be able to communicate with spirit. So if on this time of the year you believe that it's going to be easier to experience and feel your loved ones and communicate with your loved ones because the veil is thinner, whatever that bloody means, then it will be that way for you purely because of your belief in that. When I first started working with spirit and I found it really difficult and really hard and I kept getting no's all the time and felt like I was being beaten up by the spirit world, rejected in some way, it wasn't them, it was me. It was my resistance. It was my lack of belief. It was my doubt. And so if I believed in Halloween that it would make it easier for spirit communication, it probably would, purely because that's how energy works. If you believe you can do it, you can. And that's why I'm a big championer, it's a great word, of pumping yourself up before you work. That's why I don't do the slow, the still, the sitting in the power. That's why I do that. I am a phenomenal medium. I get evidence with ease and clarity. I am a phenomenal medium. I get evidence with ease and clarity. Chant to myself. Other chants are available and probably slightly more concise than mine, but that is the one for me and has been for the past year. So that is the thing that I say to myself to thin my veil. World's longest answer to a very simple question, but if you were listening to this and wanted me to be concise, you're going to be disappointed. It's not my strong suit. So I hope that answers your question, Kim. Isn't it interesting? Now, I know Kate at the end of that email, which I can't really delve into because it just makes me totes emotion. I just can't sit in it too much. But I promise, Kate, I'm taking it on board. And it is really interesting because it's that thing again of when I was reading for your son, I didn't realise you don't feel the impact you're making on somebody. I didn't know he was your son either because you guys are sneaky. Yeah. So interesting. I love it. I'm so, honestly, Kate, and your husband won't out you. You know who you are. I do feel like Spirit sent you guys to me. You've been absolutely instrumental for me in the last year. Oh God, I can't do all this emotional stuff. Right, let's talk about what I want to talk about, which is at the end of your email, Kate, but something that's been coming up for me a lot since I released You Can't Always Get What You Want, is the subject of alignment. And here's where it gets really interesting, because I have had a lot of people message me about that podcast. Now, some people were very happy commented on social media in the public forum. You, Kate, obviously emailed the podcast email address, so I know you're happy for stuff to be shared in a public forum. Some people didn't. But I can tell you guys this. It's split down the middle. Some people have messaged me and said, you've got in the way there. You've tried to create something. You need to trust and let spirit make it happen. And I can take that. And then other people have messaged me and said, no, you were definitely in alignment. There's a lesson here. You've just got to wait for it to come out. And these are all people that are spiritually developing, that are working with spirit, that know how spirit works. Now, what the frick do you do with that? And isn't that the problem? And when we start looking at alignment, what do we believe alignment actually is? This is that phrase that's thrown around. Now, what is alignment to your soul versus alignment to your human? Because if we're coming here to learn, then the most aligned thing we can do is call experiences to us to help our growth and learning. I did an Instagram poll. I think it went on Facebook too. And thank you if you took part. 88% of people on that poll said that they believe that we are here to learn and experience. Sorry about my dog getting involved here. 88% of people said we were here to learn and experience. 1% of people said we were here to have fun. What does that tell you about the journey? So if we all believe that we're here to learn, then if we're here to learn, then surely the most aligned experience is for us to be having experiences that bring up our shadow, that bring up our resistance, that bring the challenges to us. I mean, because I've always assumed alignment from listening to Abraham Hicks and all of that is when all the good stuff will flow to me. And I've had this year of really trying to be in alignment. And I know I've failed sometimes. I know if we take the truest form of Abraham Hicks, which is lays around, know it's coming, don't seek it, it will just arrive. Like you've ordered a pizza, you just have to wait for it to come kind of dialogue. I have genuinely tried to do that to the best of my ability. Now, I get that I'm not great at it. I'm a very impatient person, but I have tried. And yet nothing off my list for this year have I achieved. Not one thing. Not one thing. Now, I admit that within, there's still 2 months left of the year. I admit that something might happen, blah, 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 blah. But it's just interesting to think about what is actually alignment. We talk about this phrase all the time. I was aligned, I was in alignment, I was out of alignment. I use that phrasing. For me, when I'm feeling aligned, it's when I feel good, I feel positive. For me and my personality, there has to be a sense of movement. I really do not feel in alignment at the moment because I feel stuck. And I know that is my shadow work that I need to do because I need to allow myself to feel like I'm not moving without constantly being pushing forward. But I can understand that feeling if it's, and then really alignment is just feeling good, is it not? It's being in my comfortable space. But is that aligned to my soul if I came here to learn and experience? Surely if I came here to learn and experience, then being aligned would be shitty experiences like the mind, body, soul affair. Is that the most aligned experience I could possibly have? And we just, for me this year, there was a real disassembling of law of attraction. I had that, I think I've told you about it, I can't remember. I've recorded so many bleaty podcasts this year and then deleted them and not shared them because I thought they were too self-indulgent. But I had that experience this year where that publishing house had said they wanted to publish my book and asked me to wait 3 months for a meeting with them. And I waited excitedly and anticipatorily and went to see them, and they'd forgotten who I was and have never been in contact since. They obviously don't want to publish it. And from a law of attraction point of view, I feel like I did everything I was supposed to do to make that happen. I behaved as if I knew it was coming. I made plans for when it happened. I visualised it. I sat in the energy. I talked about it as if it had happened. My roller blind, the one that scarred me, actually says author on it. I really took those steps as if it was happening. And that was 7 months ago. So, I don't know. I just don't. I find it really fascinating. So how can it be? How can it be that spiritually evolved people, some are saying you were in alignment and some were saying you absolutely were not? And actually, if we don't really know, does anyone really know what alignment is? Is it just the feeling when you actually achieve something that you want? And is that not just feeling good? And and playing around with that. What's the difference here? So I just would love your thoughts again, guys. Get involved. We really got to get the dialogue going. I want some discussion on this philosophy. I don't want it to just be me. I need your interaction. Is it? What is alignment? Is law of attraction a real thing? Or is it just you're moving in that direction of what you want? Like, for example, if you are trying to law of attract a particular house, style of house to you, and you say to the universe, I want what was my house? Georgian. I want a Georgian house. You're then not looking at 1-bed new build flats, are you? You're only looking at Georgian houses. So how much of that is attraction and how much of that is you making decisions about what you want? Where's the line? I don't know. But I just thought it bears talking about what's it all about? Why are we here? This is so difficult. I've been watching Life on Our Planet, something like that. It's a Netflix documentary narrated by Morgan Freeman. And it is just absolutely effing nuts. Biologically, what has happened to this planet to get... we haven't even reached humans yet, and my mind has already been blown like 40,000 times. There is a period of time where the whole planet was moss. We've basically evolved from moss. And where is the evolution and spiritual crossover? I'm still listening to Dolores Cannon and the Jesus and the Essenes audiobook. I did have a brief break for Britney Spears, The Woman in Me, which I managed to listen to in less than 24 hours. Bloody hell. What that soul has gone through. I was weeping. I had to stop ironing at one point because I was going to burn my fingers. I had so many tears in my eyes. just absolutely incredible story of an incredible soul having just the most horrendous experiences and being let down and starved of love, really starved of love. She's the perfect example of what happens when love is lost and all that remains is money and greed. Anyway, in that, I'm pretty sure that the Essene, whose name escapes me right now, that Dolores is communicating with, talks about the earth and the evolution that has come before the souls entered, like we were all watching and waiting for it to happen. And I just find it just mind-blowing, really, the level of forward thinking that had to go in to make this planet hospitable for humans. Just crazy for me. So it's really, that's opened up a lot of it. It's so interesting because on one hand, I mean, we haven't reached humans yet, and I will update you on my thoughts when I get there. On one hand, you can see why people who don't believe in spirit and believe that we're just an accident would say that. To me, it's just more proof of the intelligence of the divine spark in all of us and God, because it's freaking nuts, man. Anyway, it's interesting. And within all of that, what about alignment for the greater good? Where does that play a part? There's alignment for me. Surely alignment also needs to be alignment for the rest of the world. All the other souls that are here. And then how does that... Then you start getting into people who live very monetarily rich lives, but are dark forces, for want of a better expression, who do things that appear to be abundantly dark, but are they actually providing much needed shadow for our lights to have experiences by? And then you just feel like your brain is going to pop out of your nose. And you will just be staring vacantly into space, dribbling slightly as somebody tries to spoon feed you a puree. Because I still have, I think, more questions than I began this journey with. All that I find happens is the more I develop and the more I start to know and understand and intuit stuff, the more I start to ask more questions. The questions don't get lesser, the questions build, and so on. So there we go. It's a bit of a crazy one. I'm going to go because my dogs are barking and they're just going to ruin the entire poddy. I'm going to go out there and actually cuddle them. But let me know your thoughts. And I'm going to do, for the next podcast, I'm planning, but it obviously may change because I try and do what Spirit asked me to, but I'm planning to do a sort of updated version of why I think we're here and what our souls are wanting to experience and what the soul's journey is. And we'll go through that again. I've got some questions, and from listeners, please submit yours if you've got any, and we'll go from there. But let me know your thoughts. What is alignment? We're always talking about it. What does that mean to you? If you had to explain alignment to somebody who's an alien, who's just arrived from outer space, how would you explain it? Let me know, because I'm interested and I want to know what everyone's take on it is, because I think it differs, which is quite interesting, really. There we go. Anyway, we keep on keeping on, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you all for getting involved, messaging me and the community, because there is something really comforting in knowing that, it's a bit difficult at the moment / toxic, but we're all going through it together. I want to sing High School Musical. We're all in this together. It feels like it's just so comforting to know that, really, isn't it? That nothing is anyone doing anything wrong. It just is what it is, and we're working through it together. So thank you all very much, and I will catch up with you again soon.